Let's uh let's talk about She-Hulk.
Yeah, let's talk about She-Hulk. I don't there wasn't a whole lot of eating vegetables in this episode, but nope, brain to mouth barrier, not gonna go there. Uh I don't know, Roland, if you saw this episode, but maybe
No,
you
but
know
I,
where
I
I was
saw what you
heading.
did there, Andrew. I liked it.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Basically, Daredevil finally showed up. Um he won a case against Jen Walters, and
Mm.
then
Who's the
they went
man?
on an adventure together. And the night ended with Charlie Cox's Daredevil, or Matt Murdock, same people, all same person, obviously, doing the Walk of Shame. And toward the end of the episode, out of Jen Walters' apartment,
I don't know.
and
I don't know if you've ever done a walk of shame. A walk of shame. Uh, I feel great doing it.
Also,
I'm not
why did he take
complaining
off his
for.
shoes? I saw that. Aren't they in
I
like, I don't know, New York or something? I would never walk barefoot.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I was like, that seems a little. Why? I
because they're
what
just
happened?
because the entire show exists to try and subvert gender stereotypes, and that's that's one little extra joke that they can kick him while he's down with, and feminize him in this way. I also heard that she like takes him in his arms and like carries him into the bedroom. Is that right?
I
No,
think that's a
no,
different character.
Different character? Weird.
that was different. That was in the trailer. That was somebody else. They actually, they just kind of are making out as they burst their way through the door, and they kind of have this moment where she's trying to take his clothes off, and they're, of course, it's super tight. So then the camera just kind of cuts to the point where they're already inside the room, and then closing the door behind them, and this like a low angle shot looking at their feet as they're sort of clearly like she's stepping on his, because in her human form she's smaller than him, I guess. Yeah. But
Hmm.
yeah, there's a lot. She finds out that he's obviously Daredevil because we've seen the clip where he's kind of running away from her because his client was kidnapped by her client because her client was actually the evil person pretending to be a hero, and he was a bit of a narcissist. And there's that
Right.
whole thing. But overall the episode was pretty good. I didn't The bar for the show is so low that honestly, what feels like a good episode for most other shows would be like a down week.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that. I mean, as far as the quality here was good. I mean, this is from later in the episode, this image where she's smashing a bunch of screens. Um,
I I I will never ever watch this show, so I just have a question out of curiosity. Is she ever intimate as She-Hulk, or is she always in her human
she did that
form?
for that one episode. Like, was it episode 5? It might have been
5?
episode 6.
Okay. Just
Yeah, I think it was
curious.
episode
I'm not going to comment
5.
on that one. Yeah.
No?
No.
Yeah, I think it was this one, episode 5. Because she went out dating like a bunch of guys who all dated her for the wrong reasons or didn't like her at all, and then she slept with one of them, and then didn't call her back because the dude saw her as Jen Walters after the fact, and he was
Hmm.
he was like, I'm into you and you're She-Hulk, because he's like this big dude himself. And so, and then it
Oh.
ties into how she wins her case against Titania, which was like a nice way to tie the two stories together. Certainly better than what they've done in a lot of the episodes. But anyway, this episode, yeah, it was the idea is she's trying to find somebody who likes her for Jen Walters, not for being She-Hulk. And Daredevil seemed to be the first person that had a genuine connection with her, as both sides of her alter egos. So yeah, I mean, they're doing a better job with the character development, I think. There was the whole from it kind of spilled over from last episode where she went on this retreat where Bobby Nation has his own ranch, and he it's basically for people to go rehab, like all these superhero people. There was a man bull, and it was a neat episode. But what I realized that watching back that episode again and then this episode is the CGI gets really spotty, and a lot of the scenes where clearly Marvel's like production supervisors, VFX supervisors, whoever, they were like, it's okay if we don't exactly get this 100% right. But then, like for example, this sequence that you're seeing on screen now at the gala where she's one of 6 lawyers, female lawyers of the year. her CGI got really good toward the end when she was smashing screens, and then gets caught. The police obviously are. Oh, there's the walk of shame. Wow, these pictures are out of sequence. Anyway, the point being, the CGI gets better in certain shots, but it gets really bad in other shots. I'm starting to realize that's a function of they either gave the people more time to work on it or said, hey, here's more money to work on it. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, that level of quality is not applied throughout the show. And that's disappointing because then you get like these
That's
jarring
disappointing?
shots. Huh?
That's what's disappointing? The
Well,
CGI?
I mean, look, on top of everything else, that's what disappointing. Like, for example, when this vetting episode, some of the shots She-Hulk looked fantastic, but then whenever they go to like the office space where she works, whether it's a conference room scene, her own office, her CGI looks terrible. And I'm like, what is going on? It looks like PS4 video game graphics when you're playing Grand Theft Auto,
Hmm.
and that's not meant to be a compliment, but like, I just so wish the CGI was okay. Just to kind of wrap things up, by the way, one other thing about CGI that I realized, one of the reasons why the CGI looks bad when it does is Tatiana Maslany is somebody who's got an incredibly emotive face. Like, so whenever you see her acting in the show, she's using like every muscle on her face and like her head and everything. She's very emotive. And then the She-Hulk character, that model is just not nearly as emotive. So the voice, the face acting or what, all of that comes across as incredibly stiff. And with her voice behind it, it just throws you off because like you just watched the scene where she was herself and she was incredibly emotive, and now you're hearing her voice, but you're seeing this seemingly robotic character. So even
I
when the
that's
rendering is good,
that's a
there's that
common
other
problem in
disconnect.
animation and
Yeah.
dubbing and all kinds of stuff where you get a really great performance and the animation doesn't honor the performance at all. That's that's a problem that exists everywhere, but it's disappointing when it happens no matter what. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. I feel like we've been just talking about this show forever. How many left?
One,
One more.
right? Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
sweet release.
8 out of 9. So we got one
Yeah.
more to go.
Oh my
My
god.
plan is to binge watch it this week so I can maybe defend this show because I feel like we've just been dragging it through the mud this
I
entire like
Nobody has
no.
anything good to say about it except for Rotten Tomatoes.
yeah.
No, I mean, look, I think, okay, here's the thing. I think the show hit its low point pretty early on, and it's gotten better from there, but it's really, I think it's incredibly uneven because the show is too packed. They're trying to do too much. So each episode feels somewhat even, or just when you know what the show is, the next episode is something completely different. So it's sort of like either on purpose playing with your expectations, but in doing so, when you only have 20 minutes a week for 9 weeks to do this, if you don't settle on a certain formula of sorts, like in terms of when you click onto this episode, this is what you expect to see, then you're really going to create this kind of a feeling where the audience doesn't know what to expect, and therefore they're just sort of confused what the show is all about. And that's kind of my thing about this is like one week we get like a true sitcom sort of an episode, the next week it feels like an MCU movie crunched into 20 minutes, and then some other weeks it's trying to combine both of those into one and getting neither of them, doing a very good job at either of those concepts. So yeah, and then the grand, because of how closely this show connects to a lot of other, not closely, but like we have Wong coming in, we have all these other characters who are in these other parts of the MCU and they look and behave totally differently. I don't know how much of the show's tone is going to translate to those characters when they show up in their next movies and iterations and TV shows. So in the grander scheme of things, I just don't know how much this show is adding to the bigger picture, and
Has
is it
it?
worth like all
Yeah.
the like the whole Captain America thing that they did, and like in episode 1, the whole it was he a virgin. Like, is it really worth like, oh, here's a big one. So in the Matt Murdock's in the courtroom, one of the things that he brings up as but when defending his client is, may I remind you that the Sokovia Accords have been repealed, and it just like drops there, moving on, and I was like, whoa, the Sokovia Accords are gone? Like the thing that Captain America Civil War was based on, that broke up the Avengers, that like played into everything that happened all the way till Endgame, and then has even been mentioned in the Phase 4 stuff since. And all of a sudden, to say it's done is, oh, it's been repealed, and then just move on. I'm like, okay, like that kind of
Has
thing.
it violated the MCU enough to the point where you would call this show non-canonical?
It's difficult because of how many of these other like cameos they're making. Because I'm like, if I call this non-canonical, then
Right, but is this just another universe in the multiverse? Are we going to
the,
take that route?
there is a theory going around um, on the internet. I don't know how many people prescribe to it, where basically they think that every project in the MCU Phase 4 is like in its own little universe. And so when we get to like the Secret Wars, all of those things are finally going to merge. So all these characters we've been watching, like Moon Knight exists in his own little bubble, and
Hmm.
the WandaVision clearly happened in the same, as Doctor Strange.
Not
But like there's some of these
necessarily,
other
because they
things.
walked back a bunch of this stuff and it just happened
Yeah,
similarly. So
exactly. Like
that
they're
could work.
variants. Like maybe some variants of that happen in the main MCU, but then what we saw was like a slightly different variant of that. I don't know. I'm kind of over the idea of just how casually they've sort of started to, play to the idea of variants and multiverse kind of things.
Yeah,
Because
at
if
the
you're
end
gonna
of the day, it's
introduce
lazy
that,
writing.
then yeah, exactly. Because if you're gonna introduce it, then you have to still stick to some sort of ground rules. You can't just be like, well, everything is relative, because then nothing matters. Like that's,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Marvel stuff seems to be mattering less and less,
yeah.
but they're going to keep making
Yeah.
more. So if you
You know
like
what
it,
makes it especially look worse is the fact that this is running at the same time as Andor and the Rings of Power and the House of the Dragon, because
hmm,
you're looking at all these, franchises that are incredibly mature and very well thought out storytelling from episode to episode, and then for some reason right then and there, Marvel's putting out probably its least well thought out show. Like I'd rather, like, if they had I don't know, let's say even Falcon and the Winter Soldier, WandaVision, or Moon Knight running right now, because it's sometimes it makes it look worse simply by comparison, because naturally in your mind you're like, you either just watched Andor or you're about to watch Rings of Power after it, and then She-Hulk just looks like it's worse just by comparison alone. So it's not helping his case. But
yeah. Uh, well, thankfully, there is only one episode left, and I never have to hear about it again. Hopefully, hopefully, hopefully. We can only hope. But thanks for watching, and hopefully you like this and or want to talk about it. We'll respond.